listening to Indie Rebel, the podcast for independent filmmakers. Welcome back. My name is Christopher Temple, and today we're just going to get right into it. We're going to talk all about casting. Casting is an extremely important part of the process, and I say that every time, right? Writing is an extremely important part, scheduling is an extremely important part. Casting is too, because for the first time now we're starting to make some real practical decisions here about what we're actually going to see on the screen because it involves people. Okay, we're not doing some animated film where you get to go through and do it all in Blender. Like, this is live action. You're dealing with real people, and it's going to start to test your people skills. And believe me, you need that if you're going to be a director. And it's also allowing you to start, visualizing the film a little bit more because you can have a totally different image in your head, and then suddenly now you're in the casting phase and somebody walks in and they may not be who you thought uh you needed for the film, but just through your interaction with them you're like, oh, you're going to bring this to a whole new level. And so really this is an important part, and like everything just kind of gets more important the further along we go in the process, and I found that to be true in many cases. Now, on a big movie set or shoot, you're going to have a casting director, and it is their job to go out and kind of source a whole bunch of actors and bring them in and start doing some preliminary reads, and everything's recorded. And then you, as the director, get the tapes, and you get to start looking at them and choosing kind of your top performers. And then you do callbacks for them, and now you actually go and interact with them and start directing them, and maybe you do like screen tests and stuff, and you start bringing in other actors together, and that kind of thing. In fact, that's actually how George Lucas worked on Star Wars, the original Star Wars back in 77. He would kind of like have a group of like potential Lukes and potential Hans and potential Leias, and would kind of put them all together and start mixing them up and figure out how everybody looked together and how they all worked together, because he knew that those three characters were going to be together a lot and that that was going to be important. As an independent filmmaker, we don't always have that luxury of having a casting director. Okay, you as the director will be the casting director. It's your job to find people, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this. When I first started and I was doing my first feature, Wolf, back in '07, I was catching shoplifters at the time as I was writing the script, and I got to know a lot of the employees at the stores that I worked, and so a lot of it the times it was just kind of looking at personality more than anything. And if somebody had an interesting personality and they popped a little bit, then I would talk to them and say, hey, I want to be a filmmaker. I'm working on making this movie. Would you want to possibly be in it? And that's one way you can go about it. I was involved with a haunted house, and that's where I found some actors for that, even because now I already knew they could act, they could scream, and all that kind of stuff. I've since learned that this isn't always the most professional way to go about this, though, either. And as my movies have gotten better and more professional, I've tried to have my casting process get better and more professional too. So these days, what I will do typically is I will start local, and I will put an ad out on a local Facebook group. And I don't have a personal Facebook page, but I always make sure that I've got one for whatever film I'm doing. And that's an extremely important part for distribution down the road too. And I'll say, hey, I'm going to be shooting, I'm a local filmmaker. And usually I start with, I run a production company here called Pyro Studios and that kind of a thing. So they know that I'm local, people would recognize me. Hey, I'm shooting a movie and looking for some actors. And I give a brief, like, short 3 sentence synopsis of what the movie's about. I mention the kinds of people that I'm looking for and what age ranges, male, female, ethnicity, if that's important for your film, how old they are, that kind of stuff. And then I say, yeah, let me know if you're interested. The other thing that I'll do is I will go to a website called backstage.com, and they will let you post an ad for your film. And what's cool is you can actually start browsing actors, and you can browse from geographic regions. So if you want to keep it close to where you're located, or you can put out your net worldwide and see what you can find. And on my last film, Leap, that's actually what I did. It was a combination of Facebook and Backstage. I ended up with 2 actors from Backstage, and I actually did 3 auditions with people from Backstage. And then I had a Facebook post that I put out to kind of find the rest. And the Facebook one is pretty much where you're going to find your non actors or first timers, people that have never even really considered it before, but they're opportunistic and they see your post and they're like, hey, this sounds like it could be kind of fun. And then backstage is where you're going to find your more established actors, people that have done projects and work before. In the past, I have used Craigslist.com, but I've noticed that as of the past 5 years or so at least, that website's kinda dead. Facebook Marketplace has really replaced it for a lot of things, and now, having our local community Facebook groups, whether they call it like a bulletin board or a 411 or, information you need to know, whatever your local Facebook group is called, that's replaced a lot of Craigslist as well, just in terms of finding people and that kind of a thing. So, Facebook groups and backstage.com are really where I think you should be spending a lot of your time and possibly money. Now, backstage.com was cool when I signed up with them for Leap. This was back in 2023. I was able to sign up for free and they let me post my listing for free as well because it was my first time posting. So I didn't have to post or I didn't have to pay at all to post my ad that I was looking for actors. And that was really cool. Now, another thing you can do as well is start checking out your local community theaters and talk with the directors there and let them know, hey, I'm shooting a film. Here's kind of what I'm looking for. Do you know of any actors that might be interested? The one thing I have noticed though, working with theater people, is they're used to projecting for the back row, whereas the camera a lot of times is 5 to 10 feet away from them. And so I I have found that a lot of times with theater, your number one direction you're gonna give them is tone it down, tone it down, tone it down, tone it down. Now, if you're doing a character piece or something where it involves them being characters, theater people can do great. I've had a few very good experiences working with theater people, and I've had a few not so good experiences working with theater people. So that is another option. Just know that that's out there for you. Now, eventually, you're going to start getting um, replies to your ads that you've posted, right? And so usually what I'll do is I'll make sure to ask for a headshot and resume. And it doesn't have to be a professional headshot. I don't care if it's done by a professional photographer or if they did it with their phone. I don't want them to take a complete selfie because that looks a little bit distorted. I would, recommend, and this goes for you actors out there, I'd recommend that you hand your phone to a friend or family member and have them take the photo for you. But don't turn on portrait mode or anything like that. Like, just keep it natural. Have a white wall behind you. It's just something kind of basic. We're just looking to see what you look like. That's it. All right. We don't need to see something super high end, super professional. And actually, too, color is preferred. I know a lot of actors like doing black and white headshots. I'm not a fan of that at all. I want color because I want to see what color your hair is. I want to see what color your eyes are and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to the resume, really what I'm looking for is your interests and any previous acting experience. I'm not going to go and like hunt down all the previous directors you've worked with. I just want to see if you've got some experience working on film before. I want to know what your level of expertise is. Um, obviously, when you're first starting out as a director, you don't have a lot of experience. And it could actually be beneficial then to not work with actors that have a lot of experience. And this is controversial, I know. But if you got an actor that's got, 10 movies to their name and this is your first film, they're going to have maybe higher expectations or be frustrated with you on set. So that may not be a good working relationship to have. Now, there are exceptions to that. You can find some great actors that have done a lot of stuff that are willing to help guide you through the process, but you just kinda get into some different waters there. They're almost kinda taking on kind of a producer role at that point, and that's something you could do too. But if you're just starting out and you find somebody that's not done anything before, give them a chance. This is they're taking a chance on you. You take a chance on them, and you guys can grow together. And hopefully, you get a good working relationship. You'll want to work together again in the future, and that makes casting a lot easier. And it makes writing a lot easier too, because you'll start writing a movie saying, "Oh, I'm writing this part for so and so, and I know how so and so is." But yeah, I'm looking for previous experience and I'm looking at your interests. What kind of things do you like to do for fun? Because that gives me more things that I can add to the character to add color and flavor to it. So if you do ballroom dancing, throw that in. If you've done martial arts, if you can fish, you hike, you do archery, whatever. Um, you know, maybe you can knit. I don't know. Throw some stuff like that in your resume. It gives it more color and it gives us directors a chance to say, "Ooh, that would be cool. I can add that into the thing," and that will just bring more color and flavor to the characters. So I asked for the headshot and resume, and if the headshot looks like somebody that could work, like if I'm looking at it and I say, "Ooh, yeah, that could actually be really good. I like the look that they have. I could see that being perfect for this character." Then I'm going to send them the script. Okay. And don't worry about somebody stealing your movie when you send out the script. All right. You are a nobody at this point. Nobody cares who you are. And really, like, they're not gonna steal your film. Like, it can happen, but it is extremely, extremely rare. No one's gonna go run off and go make it before you get a chance to, okay? So send them the script, let them read it. This is especially important if you're doing something that could be construed as controversial, if there's any nudity in the film, if there's any form of intimacy, like even kissing. Like, the actors need to know upfront going in what could be expected of them. So I let them read the script. I give them 2 or 3 days. If I haven't heard from them, I reach back out. I say, "Hey, did you have a chance to read the script yet?" Sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. And if they are still interested in doing the audition, then we set up the time and place to do the audition, or possibly a Zoom call if they live too far away, and I have had that happen. My, lead male on Leap lived about 6 hours away from me, so we did his auditions over Zoom. Once I cast the love interest in the film, then I actually had them both jump on a Zoom call together and read some lines together for a callback to watch how they would interact with each other, and that worked out really well for that, and then I was able to bring him out, and we were fine. So Zoom can work for stuff like that. If they're local though, I don't like doing Zoom. Like, I want to meet you in person. I want to get a feel for how tall you are, what your build is, what the personality is, because you're going to interact with people differently in person than you will over a Zoom call. As far as the time and place, really the place is important. And I like choosing public locations. If you've got a lot of people that you're calling in for casting and like you just want to spend 4 hours and just kind of get through 20 people, then a nice quiet public place like a library can be a great opportunity for that. A lot of public libraries have little rooms that you can rent out for a couple of hours. And then what's cool is as people show up, they can just sit outside the door and wait. One person leaves, the next one comes in, and you stagger out your auditions at about 15 to 20-minute intervals. I think about 20 minutes is good. That'll allow you to do like 3 people an hour, and it gives you a chance to uh, get to know them when they come in. It'll also then allows you to have some time to wrap up and prepare for the next person before they come in. So that way you're not just boom, 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 going through people like that. So public libraries are great. If you're in an area like me where you're only auditioning 1 or 2 people a day or at a time, then I actually like public parks or schools, and I found that those work out really well. Now, the reason for doing this all in public is for their safety and your safety, right? You don't need anybody pointing fingers and saying, "Oh, I went in for an audition with so and so, and they tried to do bad things to me." That's not gonna go well for the publicity and press of your movie, and it's gonna tarnish your reputation. So the more public you can keep it, the better, but you still want it quiet enough that you will be able to hear them and interact with them, and the camera that you're gonna have set up will get a good recording too. We'll talk about the camera here in just a minute. Other things to keep in mind with the location too is if your film has special requirements of the actors, whether it be screaming or crying or something like that, that's a little outside the norm of just straight acting. You'll want to make sure in your audition that your actors can do that, and you need a location that is accommodating to that. The last thing you want is to be in a library casting a horror film where you need the actresses to scream to make sure that they can scream and you want to hear what their scream sounds like, and now everyone in the library is disturbed because they're screaming coming from this office room in the back. So that's where maybe a public park or something like that can be good. And usually people will look around, and if you have your camera, and this is another reason why I recommend having a camera, they'll be like, "Oh, they're just making a movie, that makes sense." And usually you can get away with it that way. Show you share a fun story. I was shooting my first feature, and I actually had a actress drop out just before the first day of shooting. So it's the night before we're supposed to shoot, and I'm scrambling. I'm trying to find people. I'm using Craigslist at the time. I get a reply from a girl, and I didn't have any choice. I didn't have a chance to meet her ahead of time. I just had her headshot, and so I emailed her the script, and we did her audition over the phone. And it's a horror film. And so I asked her, I said, "Well, can you scream?" She goes, "Oh, yeah, I can scream." I said, "Do you mind doing that just so I know?" She goes, "Sure." And she lets out this blood curdling scream, and it was great. I find out later she was working as a receptionist in a dentist office and was on her break and did this blood curdling scream from the break room or the staff lounge, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, people looked at her when she came out and she's like, "What? I'm auditioning for a movie." But like had freaked out a bunch of the patients and stuff there at the dentist office. I thought that was hysterical. So yeah, uh, keep this stuff in mind when you're doing your casting or choosing your location for the casting. Now, to prepare for the audition, you as the director need to make sure you've got your act together. And part of that means printing off something called sides. Sides are scenes that a particular character is in and generally only has, their lines in it. I don't go that far. I just print out the entire scene that we need for it and go from there. But a lot of people I know will like to go through and only give the actor, like, their particular, lines in that scene and not do the rest of it. That never made sense to me, because when I go through my process, we're actually gonna read through the entire scene together as they're auditioning. So get your side. I still call them sides though. So get your sides. I'll have, like, on my last one, I had a Blake packet, I had a Liz packet, and then I had the mom packet and a dad packet and that kind of a thing. And so I had these scenes like that. When you're choosing your scenes, pick scenes that will show a range that the character goes through. I like having about three that we do. I don't go any more than that typically, and I'll try to find, if there's something humorous. I'll look for that, or if I'm looking for a certain connection with a character, and I know that's a key part to the film, I'll make sure that whatever scene I pick has that involved with it. Um, and then I like to, if there's some like a very emotional scene where there's crying or anger or something like that, I usually make sure I throw one of those in there as well too, and because I want to make sure that the potential actor can go to those spots, and I want to see what it's going to take to get them into that headspace that I need them to be in when we do this kind of stuff. So pick about three scenes that show the range that they'll need to go through. I also want to make sure I charge up the batteries for my camera. And like bringing my big camera. I don't always do this, but I like bringing the cinema camera whenever possible, simply because I want to see if the actors are camera shy. A lot of people, especially theater actors who have got this experience or think that they're outgoing, some people will show up and they just totally shut down when the camera's on them. And so you want to know that about them. So I like using the big camera or at least a DSLR or something like that, even if I'm not bringing the big cinema camera with me. And then on the day of the auditions, I always try to make sure that I show up first. I never, ever, ever want to have an actor beat me to the audition location. That looks really bad on my part. Plus, if I show up first, that gives me a chance to get the camera set up, get the sides out. I've got my full script in front of me, and it shows that I'm prepared and I'm ready to go. And then I usually carry a small binder folder thing with me that I can throw any headshots and resumes in that the actors may bring to the audition. By being set up ahead of time, too, it also allows the actors to easily find you. So, like, if I'm at a park and I've specified you generally in the park where to meet, um, they'll pick up on it pretty quick when you've got your camera out that, oh, that must be the guy I need to go see, and you can make that happen that way. When the actor shows up, I like to start off with a little bit of small talk. I'm going to ask about, what are your favorite movies? I'm going to ask again about prior experience. Um, what made them want to be an actor? What do you enjoy about making movies if they've got experience, that kind of a thing. I'm also going to ask if they've read the script, and I'm going to ask if they have any issues with it. Again, this is especially if there's any scenes that maybe people could be uncomfortable with. Um, Kissing, or, intimacy, um, nudity, that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that everybody's cool with it. Make sure they're cool with the subject matter. If it's a horror film and they're thinking or they thought that maybe it was going to be a drama, well, you want to know that, hey, are you good with the blood and guts and all that kind of stuff? So, yeah, just make sure that they're good with the script. Then I usually go into a little spiel about, here's why I'm making the film. Here's kind of my experiences. Here's what brought me here, and this is what I'm hoping to accomplish with this. Then I'll give them the sides. And just like directing on set, I explain what the purpose of the scene is. I explain what their character's goal is in that scene. And then I hit record on the camera. I verbally introduce who the actor is. And then we read the scene through. I'll try to act it out a little bit. I'll read the all the other parts and the descriptors, like the action lines, and then I let that particular actor who's auditioning for a part read that character's lines, and we go through the scene. Now, the most important part is to do the scene a second time. And when you do it a second time, you need to give them some direction that changes it based upon how they did it before. Even if you loved what they did the first time through, you want to make sure that this actor can take direction. So, I might change it up. Okay, hey, that was really good, but you know, let's play it off this way. Let's try this. Let's make it an uncomfortable scene between these two characters. And actually, now I want you to play the scene as if you're having a sex talk with your son, right? Like you're having the talk with him, and it's very uncomfortable for you. Most parents don't want to have to do this, but the time has come, and let's try to play the scene that way. And then you go through and you read the scene again, and you see, hey, were they able to take that direction that I gave them? So very, very important. The first time through, you're just kind of seeing what they bring and how they interpret the scene. But the second time through, you just want to make sure that they can take the direction. And then you go through and you just repeat this for the other two scenes that you've got. At the end, to wrap it up, I say, okay, great. This wraps it up. Do you have any questions for me? And what you're looking for is, kind of stuff maybe involving scheduling or that kind of thing. A lot of them will say, well, when do you expect to have the role cast, or is there any pay? You need to make sure you have answers to these questions in advance, right? You need to know, do I have a budget? Do I not have a budget? What are my budget potential options here for it? And then, yeah, shake hands, part ways, tell them that you'll get back to them, and hopefully give them a time frame of when you will be getting back to them. Now you're going to go home and you're going to watch your dailies essentially. You're going to watch these auditions. And you're going to be asking yourself, all right, I've got 3 people auditioning for this character. I've got 2 people auditioning here. Who best represents the character, right? Or even more importantly sometimes, who do I want to work with? I had an audition about 15 years ago. I was casting my parkour film, and there was a girl that auditioned. I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to embarrass her in the event that she is listening to this. And the way I was running my auditions back then, because it was a parkour based film, was two. We did the acting part, right, reading scenes from the script. But then I also ran them through a parkour boot camp, and so I had everybody come back at a certain time, and I had usually about 5 people, and I ran them through parkour boot camp at this school, this high school, where it was great for training parkour because I wanted to see how athletic they were, and I wanted to see um, if they had the potential to learn what we needed to do. Because kind of like in the Matrix, where the Wachowski brothers wanted to make sure that all the main actors could do the kung fu, I want to make sure that all my actors could do their own parkour. So this girl shows up, and I do the thing with her, and she does nothing but question me every step of the way. Well, why are we moving? Why are we doing this? This seems silly. Uh, I don't want to do that. I don't feel like doing that. And just fighting me every step of the process. And I'm asking them to do like conditioning moves and stuff at the end. That's part of what we do. We do conditioning to strengthen the muscles and get some increased flexibility, that kind of stuff. And she's like, well, my friend is a physical therapist and he would have something to say about this or whatever, just going on and on and on. So I'm thinking, you're a nightmare. I don't want to work with you. She actually emails me 2 days later and says, yeah, so I've talked to some of my friends and told them about how you ran your audition, and they don't think this is a good fit for me, and I agree with them. And I just ignored her because if I replied back, it was going to be extremely snarky and sarcastic. It was going to be, I don't think you're a good fit for this either, lady. I don't want to work with you. Funny story. About 5 years later, I'm working on a documentary series called The Days of Noah and I'm working for a production company at this point. This is not my own project. I'm the visual effects guy and all purpose grip best boy on set, whatever. And we're auditioning for some reenactments. She put her hat into the ring. She submitted to it, not knowing I was a part of this. And I told the director of that film series, I said, look, dude, I've auditioned her before. And I said, she is going to be a nightmare. I said, I would not even invite her to the audition. And yeah, so just be aware that actors, how you handle your audition process might make or break potential jobs later on down the road. So I had to share that story about like it's important to know who do you want to work with because you're going to be on set together probably for at least 12 days. My shortest film shoot was 12, up to a couple of months, and you're going to start to be like a family. And do you want to be a good, tight, close knit family, or do you want to be a family that's got all those issues and stuff that make for a sitcom on TV where you're just arguing in each other's throats all the time? Personally, I'd rather be like a good, tight, close knit family. So once I've decided who I'm casting for the roles or who I'd like to cast, I call them up and I offer the part. I'm going to ask about any scheduling conflicts. I explain how long I need them for. This is why we do our schedule first, right? Remember, we talked about that a couple months ago, actually. Get your schedule done first so you at least know how long you need your actors for, or have a general idea. And then say, hey, here's when I'm looking to shoot this. Does that work for you? If it doesn't, have them look at their schedule. And this is where you're going to have to start rescheduling the film, right? You're going to start bouncing back and forth if you really want that person. And if for the right actor, I will bend over backwards to accommodate them. Like seriously, if I just want to work with you because I like you are perfect for the role, we will postpone production, we will rearrange stuff, we'll go to crazy schedules, like whatever it takes. So, but at least I have a schedule in place first so I can explain that kind of stuff. Also, very important, you want to ask when you offer them the part, ask if they have any allergies, right? If you're going to do a film with liquid latex, you need to make sure they're not allergic to latex. You also want to know from a food standpoint, do they have any allergies that you need to avoid when you're bringing food on set, right? Because you're going to need to feed your actors. You're also going to want to have some snacks around, that kind of stuff. Maybe if you have a wrap party and things, again, this is all important stuff that you need to know. You're going to discuss the pay and agree upon it and what those stipulations are. And then you can send them the contract and they're signed and hired and you guys are ready to go about making the feature film. One other note, and this is for actors out there, another key thing I just thought about as I was wrapping this up, make sure when you are sending in your headshots that like it actually represents you and how you look. And this is also why I recommend just doing a nice color shot with your phone. When I was casting a movie back in 2009, I had an actor reply to it, and he had this like long curly hair, and the photo he sent was like black and white and very contrasty, and I think he even had like sunglasses on. Like it just looked ridiculous, and it was not what I had in mind at all for the character. So I ignored him for a little bit. And then he reached out to me again, and he's like, "Hey, have you had a chance, to look at my resume? Like I really want to audition for this." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't really look the part." So I'm trying to stall and postpone and stuff. I keep pushing him off, pushing him off. He reaches out again. Like this dude was persistent. So finally I say, "What the hell? I'll give you a chance." We show up, and this is for a parkour movie, right? So we're at the high school, so we can do the parkour training after his audition. He looks nothing like his headshot. He has cut all of his hair off. He looks like a very clean cut kid now, not like just some little punk teenager and stuff. I said, "Dude, you look nothing like your headshot." He goes, "Oh yeah, I know. That was from like last year." I said, you really need to like send a better photo of yourself in the future. I said, because that was why I was avoiding you for so long. He nailed the audition, and I ended up working with him on 2 movies, and we became good friends after that. So actors, please keep your headshots updated. All right, well, that wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and we will see you guys next time right here on Indie Rebel, the podcast for independent filmmakers.